Hello, I'm John Molesky, and this is Wilson Center Now, a production of the Woodrow Wilson International Center for Scholars. My guest today is Nirupama Rao. Nirupama is a Wilson Center Global Fellow and an advisory board member for the Center's Asia program. She previously served as India's Foreign Secretary and as its ambassador to the United States and to China. We're thrilled to have her with us today to talk about a really special project of hers, the South Asian Symphony Orchestra and Foundation. Ambassador Rao, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, John. It's great to be here.
So the website for the orchestra says the South Asian Symphony Foundation works towards building peace and mutual understanding in South Asia through the medium of music and the creation of the unifying platform of South Asian Symphony Orchestra. Tell us about how you came to this project. Were you a music fan who understood the power of music and thought this is how we can bring people together? How did it all come together?
Yes, I've definitely been attached or drawn to music from the time I was very young. And as you know, I was a career diplomat. I spent my life in the Foreign Service and was able not only to travel the world, but also to form quite an intimate understanding of India's neighborhood, which is known, as you know, as South Asia. Now, South Asia is the least integrated place in the world, in my view. We don't build bridges of connectivity. There are many political problems that have divided us, and there's a history, the historical baggage that we
The burden
carry.
of colonialism.
And burden of colonialism, and you know the India-Pakistan relationship, how fraught it is.
Yes.
And then today we have China increasingly asserting itself in the region. So my experience was that integration seemed to be, as of now, a bridge very far. And when I retired, I felt that as a citizen, I think we can all be diplomats in our own way, even if we're not attached to a particular institution or government. I felt, let me practice some citizen diplomacy. And my idea was to meld my love of music with a venture in diplomacy. When I say venture, we've really ventured forth into terra incognita in many ways because A, we'd never had a symphony orchestra that united South Asians, and B, nobody had really tried at the individual level to create an institution that would bring people of the region together and beyond, and the diaspora of South Asian origin, to come and listen to each other, work together, and in the process create some semblance of harmony.
No, and you see it around the world. Pop culture and the arts have a way of breaking through and bringing people together in ways that political debates certainly don't. What has been the response? What have you seen? Have people taken to this like a fish to water?
Yes, the response has been overwhelmingly positive, not only from the musicians whom we've gathered together, but also the audiences before whom we've performed, and also in the larger space around us where the media has been concerned, let's say the South Asian media, and even beyond. I did a piece for the Symphony magazine, which is published here in the United States soon after our first concert. Harvard University invited me to write something about the orchestra. So I've tried, and we have a journal called Accord, which goes out to hundreds of people. I would invite our viewers to subscribe to it also. It's on Substack, and you can find
Accord
it.
on Substack.
Yes, Accord on Substack. It's sasf.substack.com, South Asian Symphony Foundation. So that's how we began. It seemed to be quite an undefined adventure we were going to embark on, my husband and I. And we set up this not-for-profit trust in Bangalore, where we live in the south of India, called the South Asian Symphony Foundation. That was exactly 4 years ago, a little over 4 years ago. And we've held 3 concerts since then, and during the pandemic, a lot of virtual events. Most importantly, we've created an identity for the musicians in the area of South Asia to be able to connect with their counterparts all across the world, from the United States to New Zealand.
How many nations are represented within the orchestra?
At last count, it was 11 nations. So we've gone beyond South Asia. And I think the diaspora, people of South Asian origin and Indian origin everywhere, especially in this country, have been a major constituent of this effort.
And the orchestra itself is the headliner, but you do other activities, music workshops, master classes, lectures. Talk to us about those activities.
Yes. Well, during the pandemic, one of the, I remember with particular happiness, one of the events I did was with Ali Sethi, the Pakistani singer who studied at Harvard and then went on to embark on a career in music. He's a wonderful musician, a singer, a vocalist. And we did a conversation about can a South Asian identity be crafted through music? And maybe in the show notes to this interview, you can provide a link to that. We spoke about how culture is essentially a unifier within South Asia. We often speak the same languages. Let's say India and Pakistan, we speak the same language. We have shared a history for many millennia before we were partitioned. And in my conversation with Ali, who was wonderful, we spoke about these connectivities, these links between us, literature, poetry, music, and just, being South Asian, rising above borders and political divisions.
Yeah, any of us who've seen people-to-people diplomacy see that there's a certain magic that takes place. When you think about that, how do you expand that to a larger group of people?
Well, I think you have to be able to inspire people with the message. It's not just the medium, but the message. And we created the orchestra, and just the process of introducing one musician to the other, and the process of learning that many of our musicians in our region who are not exactly exposed to symphony orchestras. We have a very rich tradition of classical music, as you know, within South Asia, particularly India. But when it comes to a symphony orchestra, which is often a Western construct, as you know, more than it is for us in South Asia. So just the novelty of having that orchestra, and then the sounds that we are creating. Sound becomes so evocative and so inspirational when the orchestra plays together. Whatever music they play, and we essentially have performed in India, as you know. And the audience there, some of them, of course, are aficionados of Western classical music, but many are not. And the young people who come to our rehearsals and our concerts seem to be so taken with the idea. And, the impact of an orchestra's sound and performance can be tremendous.
So when it comes to diplomacy, you could write the book, right? You have extensive experience. Put it together an international summit, you can handle that. But what about assembling an orchestra, finding a leader? How did you begin, and who is the conductor?
Yes. Well, our conductor is Alvin Armugam. He's from Singapore. He is of South Asian origin. I think his forefathers came from Sri Lanka. So he runs something called the Musicians Initiative in Singapore, and I found him through some mutual Singaporean friends. So he came to conduct our orchestra, and he's very much devoted to it now, and he's been bringing up the standard of the performance. But going back even further, the germination of this idea was really way back, far away from here, while I was ambassador here in the United States, in Milwaukee.
What year would that have been?
That would have been 2012.
Okay.
And I met this conductor, who's Indian American, Vishwa Subbaraman, who was conducting Beethoven's Fidelio in Milwaukee with Indian costumes, and it was a Indian sort of influenced look to the whole opera that he was conducting at that time. So we got talking, and we said, it'd be wonderful if we could do something like this, which would bring people of Indian and South Asian origin together. And that's really how the idea was born, the idea of a South Asian Symphony Orchestra. And Vishwa, who's based out of Houston, came to conduct our first concert in Mumbai in April of 2019. The subsequent two concerts.
So the idea germinated for 6 or 7 or 8 years before the first concert.
Yes, absolutely. Because we hadn't set up a trust. We had to first create some institutional support. But it's an entirely India-funded effort at the moment.
The government of India?
Not the government of India. Private Indian citizens, and my husband and myself. We've all sort of rallied together to fund the orchestra, really.
How do you, and it's obvious, right, for not-for-profits, you need more support to make it grow.
Absolutely.
Are you active in that area? Are you trying to?
Well, I'm trying to create a pitch for the orchestra at this moment, working with somebody in Singapore actually to do that. And one of the projects that's very close to my heart is to be, for us as a South Asian Symphony Orchestra, to bring music of South Asia to the rest of the world. So one of the projects that I'm engaged in now is to transpose for orchestra music of some of our military bands in India. And many military bands, as you know, play folk music, play popular tunes, which the soldiers, you know, where they come from, are familiar with. So that's a project that I am really devoting quite a lot of attention to now.
Yeah, in this town in the holiday season, the Navy Band, the Air Force Band, they all do concerts there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very
and
popular.
Talking of the Navy Band, we have a member of the United States Coast Guard Band in our orchestra. She is...
How do you go about recruiting the members?
Absolutely. It's like literally burrowing 20,000 leagues under the sea, literally, because I had nothing to start with except that I had met Vishwa. But I didn't know the Indian orchestra performers that we could recruit in a way for this effort. We looked in Bangladesh, we looked in Nepal, we looked in Sri Lanka. Unfortunately, we haven't got anybody from Pakistan as yet. And Afghanistan. The young Afghan players in our orchestra, they really came to symbolize what we could do if we were to put our heads and hearts together to create harmonies of this nature. And all those Afghan kids today are in Portugal. They had to leave Kabul after it fell to the Taliban. But I continue to be in touch with them, and we are hoping that at our next concert we will be able to bring them to perform.
So where do you see this going? You know, when you dream big dreams about the potential, what are your greatest hopes for what this can achieve?
My greatest hope is for the orchestra not only to perform within India, but also to be able to take it abroad, to bring it to countries like the United States, to be able to spread this message, which is extremely unique for our region. It hasn't been tried before. And I've found, my experience has been in these last few years, that people are so appreciative of it, and they've responded so positively to it. Nobody has asked me, why are you doing this? Maybe they ask me, how are you doing this? But not why. The why is clearly understood, why we need to do this. So that's my dream, to be able to spread the word and to institutionalize it further, because I'd like this to be something that we can also leave behind for next generation or future generations. I don't want to die out, really, since the idea has flowered in so many ways in terms of the happiness that we brought to the musicians, the satisfaction, the professional satisfaction also, because they're playing with some of the best musicians in the world. You know, when you're getting them from countries like the United States.
What a thrill for those young musicians.
It is a great thrill for them, and such friendships have been created. When I look at their Facebook pages, they're constantly in touch. They're sharing music and anecdotes and just telling each other about life.
When will we have the first album or CD?
Well, I certainly hope we'll be able to do that in the next year or so, especially with the music of South Asia, that the repertoire that we have been creating. We're transcribing Bollywood music also, which some of it, when it's played by an orchestra, is beautiful. We did that at our last concert. We played a composition by the very famous composer, Indian composer, A.R. Rahman, who composed music for Slumdog Millionaire and won an Oscar for it.
Sure.
So we have, it's just the tip of the iceberg. I think there's so much more. The best, I hope, is yet to come.
Well, thank you for sharing all of this with us today. We talk about so much bad news. It's nice to hear something really positive that you've created. I also should tell our viewers that a lot of the music that Ambassador Rao has described, you can find on the website of the SouthAsianOrchestra.org. Terrific stuff. And we'll have a little surprise for you before we close out today in that regard. Any final thoughts, anything we didn't get to talk about that you'd like our viewers to know about?
Well, I'd like them to know that we have a YouTube channel called the South Asian Symphony Orchestra. So if you visit the YouTube site, you'll be able to listen to recordings of some of the music that we've played in our previous concerts. Music of the last concert is being readied in terms of the finalizing our video recording it's going to happen in the next few weeks, so that'll be up also. So I'd invite them to listen to the YouTube channel and to visit the website, as you just mentioned, www.symphonyofsouthasia.org.
Yes,
so
great. And as you suggested earlier, we'll put all of this on the webpage with this video so that you can find the links.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us today, and congratulations on this terrific project.
Thank you so much, John. Thank you. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays to you as well. And as Ambassador Rao mentioned, we are in the holiday season, and so in the spirit of the Symphony Orchestra, whatever your beliefs, whatever your nationality, whatever diversity that you represent, we want to wish you and your families the happiest and healthiest of holiday seasons. And we're going to send you off with a little music. I'll stop talking, and you can hear a bit from the South Asian Symphony Orchestra. Thanks for joining us.